So I'd just like to go to our next presenters, Richard Bennett and Nick Morley. Richard is Hum's Chief Growth Officer with 25 years of sales and marketing experience, both established publishing brands and research technology startups. Richard leads Hum's mission of bringing data and frontier AI to solve the challenges of publishers, societies, and media organizations. Nick is a scientist by training, software engineer by trade, studied neurosciences at Nottingham and Oxford, and has followed a career developing life science solutions for the pharmaceutical industry, and is now co-founder of Grounded AI, developing AI-enabled workflows and products. So take it away.
Thank you, Matt. And it's lovely to be here. Thank you for having us. We're going to do a two-hander on this one, mainly because the product we're going to talk about today is a collaboration between both Hum and Grounded AI. For those who don't know Hum is a technology company. We do apply AI, and we utilize AI, following on from Ivy's talk, in a number of different use cases, mostly to solve the challenges and create opportunities for content-rich organizations such as academic publishers and B2B publishers. I'm going to go through a scenario and actually share with you a live demo after this, but we're going to kind of bridge on a product that's associated with academic journal publishing. So for those of you who do or maybe not know academic journal publishing, it's built on a bedrock of peer review. So peer review and editorial review is the key kind of tenet of the quality and the structure of academic journal publishing. It does a number of different things. That process does a structural process to be able to assess a manuscript and be able to, it ensures that it is viable and it is congruent with the understanding and interests of the community it serves. It also serves a number of different kind of quality control steps. And this is where we'll go into the tool and where we're starting to push on. So it's doing, feedback from peer group to be able to improve the manuscripts. It's being able to assess the validity of that research. And it's the key tenet to actually provision of ensuring that quality is kept in the process, and the fact that, bad research isn't published. There are two significant challenges that are facing academic publishers at the moment. There is one which is scale. The first one is really that there's an exponential growth in the level of submissions that are coming in. So that is far outstripping the researcher market and the researchers that are there and have been implemented to be able to assess that research. The second part is that there's a growing level of fraud in the system. So there are both not just nonsensical papers that are coming into the system, but there are actually incredibly sophisticated, constructed pieces of research that look incredibly valid, and those are flooding into the system. And actually, we've got generally a double-hander on this as far as the actual scale and the fraud is going hand in hand. And what you're creating is an unsustainable system that humans can keep up with. But in relation to the idea of responsible AI, I think, so the way that we're approaching this challenge, and we're going to talk about Alchemist Review in this case, we are looking at ways of being able to implement AI to be able to extract knowledge and understanding and make an assessments of different aspects of the manuscript to be able to aid the human review process. So this isn't, we're going to check it all out. We're going to replace it with AI, but we do believe that we can be able to create a better and more efficient process. So we're trying to reduce decision time. So can we be able to allow an academic researcher to be able to assess a manuscript in 20-30% less time than they're spending at this moment? There's an enormous amount of human labor and time associated with the process. Increasing consistency. So we're looking at extracting similar data, making a similar assessments on the same pieces of research. So structured pieces of content, structured extractions to be able to make an assessment of that manuscript. And then productivity. So can we create a scenario where AI is doing the heavy lifting? It's reducing some of the mundane tasks that should be taken away from humans that can be replaced by AI? And can that allow the same kind of volume of individuals be able to assess a larger number of manuscripts? Alchemist Review itself is made up of 3 bits. My side, which I'll talk about, which this is a manuscript assessment. So this is the textual assessment of the paper, and that's a number of extractions, that's some summations, it's structural assessment of the manuscript. The guys at Grounded AI are doing the contextual citation analysis, so they sit alongside us. There's a third aspect in it, which we may or may not get into in the demo. There's an AI chatbot that sits in there, and the AI chatbot allows you to do 2 different things. It allows you to be able to ask questions about the manuscript itself, so you can have a conversation with the manuscript, or you can actually look outside without changing and moving away from the environment and be able to query things like Open Scholar from this position to be able to get an understanding of what the external knowledge is on any specific piece of research. Okay. Like all good things, live demos are always exciting. So I'll start on this tab. And there it goes, loads. So the input of this process is the manuscript file itself. So we're taking in a manuscript file, Word, LaTeX, PDF. We're taking in the metadata. So this is coming into us at submission. So in this case, this is an AIP Advances paper. It's something that we're working alongside AIPP, so American Institute of Physics Publishing, as part of the development group that are looking at this. We're not doing anything specific on the manuscript, so we'll be rendering the original file within this environment. We're not actually doing any sort of file conversions or anything magic from that side. What we are doing is a couple of different things. So the first one is that process of being able to seat a manuscript within a journal. So what type of manuscript is it? So can we classify it? So we're applying a primary and secondary paper type according to the terms and the structure of the journal we're dealing with. We're also taking a general summary. So this is a generalized summary. So if you have a non-expert that needs to be able to assess a manuscript before it's going on to your expert editorial process, this will allow a non-expert to be able to understand. It's also a way of being able to align it back to the scope of the journal if you really want to. Structurally, the other aspects that we're doing. So we're looking and we're rendering the entire manuscript, and we are starting to look at key named entities within the paper. So again, this is structure. Is it right? Is it valid for the venue that it's been submitted to? Is it the right handling editor? Does it have the right components for the area of research that it's been submitted to? We're also then starting to apply the custom taxonomy. So we use AI to actually create custom taxonomies based on a publisher's corpus, and we can be able to apply that directly at the submission stage. Again, this is for citing the manuscript within the journal itself. Following on from that, the next stage is really looking at an editor and looking at having an editor do a review process of that manuscript itself. So there's a couple of different things they might need to be able to do that. The first one is looking and saying, okay, what is the novelty or significance of that piece of research? So there's a couple of different aspects that we use to be able to do that. Advanced Summary is a piece of work that we did, which is called Distill Knowledge, and it's taking a multi-level paper, so it could be 20, 30 pages, 14, whatever it might be, and essentially distilling the understanding. So this is the most entity-dense version of the summary that you could be able to create. It really won't, it's the combination of the full text, it'll do extraction of methodologies, it'll do extraction of key findings, and it will bring it all together in a summary that only really you would need an editorial expert to be able to solve. The other aspect of being able to make that assessment is that we're also extracting the author contributions. So these are the aspects that the authors are asserting that is new, valid, significant about their piece of research. So again, this is trying to get it so that an editor can really be able to assess really what is the value of this manuscript within the field that they're in. Moving from that part, if it is significant, if it is interesting, the next stage is really looking at whether the actual methodologies and the structure of the paper, whether the research was performed in a robust and structured way. So we're extracting the methodologies. We're also not just extracting the methodologies, but giving the contextual assessment. So how were they applied? What were the key extractions from the hypotheses? How was it actually applied? The pieces of research were applied within the paper. Assuming that's all great, and we're starting to be able to have, it's good, it's methodologically sound, it's actually structurally well done. we're starting to actually use some of the deep thinking models. So this is where we're starting to step from structural aspects and assessments and extractions and summarizations, and we're starting to think, okay, how good is this? What can we do? Now, there are some bumper strips on this. So when we first started doing it, it would give recommendations of brand new experimental kind of pieces that would cost millions to be able to do. So essentially, it's been written down to these. Can it give an assessment and some recommendations of improvements of the paper that are within the gift of the author to be able to make? So that could be methodological kind of tightening of certain different aspects. It might be extra statistical studies that they may want to bring in. It may give, it may, in this case, it's giving a recommendation that it needs to have relevance and contextual assessment association with studies that have fallen before that. It'll do writing quality and readability over the top of it. I won't go into this because otherwise I'm stealing Nick's time. And you will notice that I haven't gone into the citation analysis and I haven't touched on this because this is where I'm going to pass across to Nick.
Excellent. Thanks, Richard. So at Grounded AI, we are in charge of the citation checking aspect of the Alchemist Review product. So before we continue the demo, I just want to intro how we came at this problem and why citations in particular are so important. And then I'm going to just describe the process we have to solve that. And then we'll look at the outputs within the Alchemist Review product and how they address the need that Richard has laid out. So when we started our life, we were building research tools, helping researchers search, summarize, organize information better. And there are lots of tools on the market which do this now, but one of the things we learned during talking to research organizations, institutions, was that actually the need wasn't so much for how can we find the right information. It's actually what information can we trust and what information is credible and what's verifiable. So that gave us the kind of push to pay our attention to how can we validate scholarly content, make sure it's trustworthy. So that's great, but why citations? Well, citations clearly are one of the most important aspects of the sort of scholarly information ecosystem. They're like a currency. But interestingly, citations are actually very overlooked during the peer review process that Rich laid out. And that's for the simple reason that checking citations by hand is just an incredible amount of work. You think there's 50, 100, or several hundred references per manuscript. If you have to go and check that all of those exist and are correctly cited, it's infeasible. And so as a result, it doesn't get the attention it deserves during peer review. And as a result, lots of bad citations make it through to publication, same kind of problem Richard was talking about. So this is why we're focused on citations. So what we've done to address this pressing need for better tools to check citations is we built a system which automates many aspects of the citation checking process, and that platform is called Veracity, and that is what's powering the citation evaluation piece within Alchemist Review. So that's a bit about how we got started and why we do it. So how do we solve this? So our process broadly is in 3 steps: extraction, source finding, and relevance checking. So I think it's key to emphasize, Richard's mentioned that we start with the raw manuscript, right? This is a PDF or a Word document. So this is right from the beginning of the process. And why is this important? Well, actually, there's a lot of solutions on the market to help with checking aspects of citation integrity, but they actually require the existence of some actually pre-built, structured metadata that would be provided by the author or by the editorial staff. And so we actually save a lot of wasted time by actually using AI to read the raw manuscript directly, extract all the citations and references from the manuscript. So once we've done that, we're going to go and try and find all of the references the author has referred to. So we go out to the wider world, we query third-party databases, we use web search engines. And this allows us to do a few things. It allows us to actually verify that the source exists. And this is becoming of increasing concern for editors of journals because they're getting a lot of AI-generated papers through, right? And they're seeing more and more of these papers, these references, which don't actually seem to go anywhere. They're fake, basically. So we can do that. And it also allows us to check that the metadata of the reference is aligned with that canonical source. And again, this is important because a symptom of improper AI use is more of this sort of garbled metadata. So you get references which look pretty real, but they're like two titles mixed together, or the authors are switched around, or the DOI is just completely messed up. So we do that. But finding the source also allows us to do a third and final thing, which is to check the relevance of how that cited source actually aligns with what the author has said. And this allows us to basically give a sort of score to citations and say, okay, these are the ones which are less obviously relevant based on our metrics. So these are the ones we prioritize for editors and peer reviewers. So they basically get sort of a much better bang for their buck when they're reviewing citations. So that's just a bit about our process. Now let's look at the actual outputs. So as you can see, Richard's left us at the digest. So we have this high-level alerts of things that we've picked up with this particular paper. So in this case, there are certain authors which seem to be disproportionately highly cited. In the industry, this is a very common sort of integrity concern, potentially. And we also have the alert that there are some citations which have a particularly low scoring relevance. So those are the two things that I'm going to be able to drill into now as I navigate through to the citation evaluation tab. And I'm not going to go through all of these features for the sake of time, but you can see we have a quantified overview of the number of issues. It sort of gives me an idea of the sort of priority level or amount of work I'm going to need to do here. I'm going to go down to the author representation because that's pertinent. You can see we've got an author that's cited very highly, and this is well above the average that we've basically established on all the papers that we've analysed. Some of these high-level statistics and assets, we are focused on quality and integrity here, but we've also heard things like editors saying, well, this is actually really useful for figuring out target audiences and who could be peer reviewers. And so we're finding that there's sort of a lot of sort of ancillary benefits to these assets as we go along, just basically better intelligence around the manuscript and who and what's being cited turns out to be really useful. So as we get to the bottom here, where we can actually drill into the detail. And so we have every single citation that we have extracted from the manuscript and all the checks we've run on that manuscript so that the user, in this case the editor, can basically follow along with our logic and verify what we've done. So I'm going to finish off with this example, and I really like this example because it's a great example of the relevance check. And so the author, this is sort of their first sentence, introductory sentence, talking about fire prevention, fire rescue, and we've been able to find that reference they're referring to, and we've got it linked. But we've been able to basically say that this source that's being cited, this seems to be about fuel consumption measurement, and it's not clear or obvious how that's related to the concepts of fire rescue and fire prevention that are being discussed here. And it may well be that there's a good reason for citing that paper there, but the fact is it's not immediately clear, and so we can prioritize that for editors. So this is basically a whistle-stop tour of the outputs we're generating, and this is all angled towards helping editors get a rapid view of the quality and integrity of the citations within the manuscript, which obviously helps with the augmented review and greater efficiency in the editorial process. So,
thanks very much, Nick and Richard.